everyone. I'm Valerie Eichler Lair, your host, and I am so excited today because I have the honor and privilege of talking to a dear friend on today's Chit Chat Live, and we're going to divulge the background of the awesome Ancestries commercial, The Descendants of the Declaration Signers. And so please give me or join me in giving Juliana Szucs a warm IDG welcome. Hi, Juliana.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm so glad we could finally nail this down.
Yeah.
Between your travel and work schedule and me, my little bit of, schedule conflicts, but finally getting together. So,
yep. All right. We finally got it done.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you. You look great in your office. I'm jealous of your new furniture.
It was a long time coming.
I bet. So I want to ask you a couple of questions before we actually get into the meat, potatoes, and gravy here. But you've worked at Ancestry since June of 1998, right?
Yep, 19 years.
Oh my gosh. And you started as, I remember reading every single word of every single page, but you were the editor of the Ancestry newsletter,
yep.
Right? And I'll let, in case, I'm sorry, I should have not had to bend over, but I'll show what that used to look like, because I don't know if new, up and coming, the next generation is even seen. But it's 3-hole punched.
Oh, that's the paper one. That's before my time even.
Yeah.
I had a plain text one, an email that went out.
Oh my gosh. And it has the label. I was a member of the Ancestry Research Club. And
nice.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and put a little pat. That cover article was from me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm gonna after our earlier discussion, I'm gonna frame this. That's like a prized possession, and just put that out there in a nice frame. But anyway, I digress. So you've been around Ancestry for a long time. How long were you the editor of the newsletter?
Oh, I edited the Ancestry Daily News, and then it became the Weekly Journal, and it went through several iterations. But I did that for probably about 10 years. And then I've since diverged into, I'm still involved with the monthly update that goes out. And now I work on the research team, and we do research for PR. I work on our social team. I help out, as a community manager there. For a while I was working with content, helping them write descriptions. And so I've had my hands in a lot of little pieces of the puzzle.
And that content part actually came earlier than June of '98, where you were.
I was doing some consulting, some contractual work before I started on full time. They hired me full time in June of '98 to start doing the newsletter, the Ancestry. I think it was called the Hometown Daily News.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Well, and so now you're a part of the research team and part of the creative team and so forth. And and then are you still involved in writing?
Yes, I do. I write occasional blog posts. I've got a couple of them that I gotta crank out this week. I do a little bit of everything. Whatever people ask me to do, I do.
Well, good. That's good though. Let me adjust this, and so it should go back and forth now because the camera was stuck, but it should be fine. Oh, and we have puppies. We have our fur babies, our loving fur babies.
Take part, I guess.
Really, they had to put their 2 cents in. I love it. They're part of our family. But so the July 4th weekend was the rollout for Ancestry debuting this new commercial, and it featured the descendants of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. And I have to tell you that it still gives me goosebumps. I watched it
Me too.
twice earlier today, and every time I see it, I pick up something different. But I have to say, I've told you this earlier, that it just, I mean, it went deep down inside, you know. So yeah, so it debuted on the 4th of July, right?
Yep. And we are so super proud of that. This was a project that we jumped on right away when we heard about it, because it's just so exciting. As you know, there are 29 real life descendants, and we verified all the research on this. We had to track them down, and there was a lot of online detective work to do this. But they recite the beginning of the Declaration of Independence, and they're posed to recreate kind of a similar image of the John Trumbull portrait of the signing the Declaration of Independence. And there was a 30-second ad and a 60-second ad. And I like the 60-second one because I just think it's so powerful.
It is. It really is. And for them to have the John Trumbull's portrait or the painting in the backdrop, it's like, oh, that was even more powerful. And I know I was doing some research about this for today's interview, and the commercial definitely showed the nation's diversity. And I want to list here, I got this on mediapost.com, and it was through them, but talking with Ancestry that gave the information. But the origins of the descendants are Caucasian, African American, Hispanic, Filipino, Native American, and Korean. It's like a lot.
And the backgrounds, these were just some of the more unusual. I mean, we had people from all around the world that they have ancestry from everywhere. So it was an amazing thing to be a part of. And I love that it sends a message that we're more alike than we realize, you know? Mm-hmm. So in fact, there was a quote, our CMO, I love this quote. It says, diversity isn't just something we value as Americans. It's quite literally a part of who we are. We're living in a time when many people feel disconnected from one another. And one of the most powerful things we can do is to show how connected we really are. We are all much more similar than you think. And we're using facts and data to prove it. This is not fluffy marketing. This is facts, or these are facts. And that's the bottom line, is we went out and did the diligence, our due diligence and the research to make sure that this was accurate.
Well, that's what caught my eye in the quote, you know, the facts and the data, because that's what, as a professional genealogist or as just a hobbyist, we need to do that. We need to get that message out. Mm-hmm. Ancestry has a huge genealogy database. You know, how many records are on your database now?
There are more than 20 billion records on Ancestry right now. 20
billion, that's with a B.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
The DNA database has now grown to more than 5 million. We've got more than 90 million family trees in our personal online trees, and they take a little bit of heat sometimes because some of them aren't perfect.
Yeah, you have to sift through that, you know.
Yeah, but there's one thing though that when I teach a class, I always try to remind people that, well, you don't want to go to them and use them as a source for your family trees. You can use them as clues. And remember that there are more than 175 million documents, photographs, stories that people have uploaded. These are all things that it may exist only in that person's personal collection. They're not going to be in an archive or a courthouse or, you know, something like that. So don't overlook them as a source. We found a photograph of an Irish famine immigrant in our family, a second cousin who posted it to her tree. And we since reconnected. She gave us a copy of the picture, and our second cousin is now a very beloved member of our family. We've been reconnected through Ancestry.
Well, I remember the famous quote, or in Tom Jones' class that I had taken at the Salt Lake Institute. In fact, you know, be careful of source snobbery. You know, right. You look at everything, but you understand that there's going to be some things that contain errors. You know,
it's all an evaluation.
Exactly. You have to analyze everything, but don't overlook anything. In fact, doing the background research, about just the commercial, and I Googled, and Ancestry has a YouTube with the commercial, and there's 1,497,912 views as of this morning.
Yeah, it's probably gone up since then.
Probably because you can count.
I go by every once in a while.
Yeah, you can count 2 that I went to go see it. So, but I want to, let's take a look at it. This people can, and we'll put this down at the bottom of our comments for the link to access what I'm about to show you. We're also going to put in any other links that might be helpful for the people that are watching this video later, but we'll have that at the bottom. So, but the URL is ancestry.com/cs/declaration. And so let me screen share. And if it all goes right, you won't see a million. Oh, you didn't see a million mirrors looking. But when you go to the website, ancestry.com, and you could even put just /declaration, it comes to this. And you just, right there, like Julie, you were mentioning about the backdrop being John Trumbull's painting. And before we go ahead and play the commercial, give us some background behind the scenes about what you see here.
Well, this was shot in a studio in Burbank, I believe, and I can't remember which studio it was, but this is an actual TV studio, and it's it was a very warehousey feel. But they experimented with all these different props and the decor that you see in there to help not mimic it exactly, but be representative of things that were in the actual portrait. For example, like there's a lady in the background under the arches on the left there with a hat. And you may think, well, why is there someone with a hat? Well, if you look at the Trumbull portrait, there is someone around in that area of the portrait that has a hat on. And a lot of the coloring, the coloring of the clothes was also used to try and mimic, in a way, some of the different things about the portrait and make it more representative. But I just think it's a really just beautiful, powerful image. And just you see the fierce pride in these people's faces.
You really do. I mentioned every time I see it, I pick up something different. And this morning, 2 things, especially where the 2 gentlemen, as they sat down together, they both crossed their legs together. And
that was not, from what I understand, it was something that was not planned. They just sat down, and it was like a normal reaction for both of them, and it was just perfectly timed. It gave me goosebumps. It's like, oh my gosh, can you just imagine their ancestors doing that? You know. And then the youngest boy, how old do you? I think he was 11. I'm not sure. I'll try and put my mouse. That's him right there, 11. That caught my eye, as well as just the decor and the clothing. Yeah, we have modern clothing, but it's the color of the different things, the different outfits was not. I don't think it's exactly the same because we don't have the same amount of people in the picture, but they wanted to place little subtle cues that reflect the actual portrait. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the commercials. So and we're going to do the 60-second one, the better one. So we'll be back in 60 seconds.
We hold these truths to be self-evident.
That all men
are created equal. That they are endowed by the Creator
with certain unalienable rights.
That among these are life,
liberty,
and the pursuit of happiness.
We, therefore,
the representatives of the United States of America,
for the support of this declaration,
mutually pledge to each other
Our lives,
Our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
Okay, so I don't take any more bandwidth. I'm going to take that off of there because I don't want it to affect our next part. So if you're ready, I'm going to just fire off some questions for you.
Okay.
Okay. Drago 5 is the
Droga
creative,
5, yeah.
Drago 5 is the creative agency, and they stated on their website that they began working on the idea in early May, and that's early May of this year, 2017. So just this year.
Yep.
So when from that idea and then the research began?
We were in a marketing meeting and they presented this idea, and the research team kind of went, we need to talk now. So we got right on it. We did not wait until the contracts were signed. We knew that if we were going to pull this off, we were going to have to get into it and start doing the research and start identifying candidates, because to cast something, and we had to find way more people than you see in that picture, because we had to find people that were available and willing to come, that particular time for the shoot, and we had to have it all done by early June. While we were working, we were researching, and we were passing on anyone we found as soon as we would get them. We actually identified more than 150 people, direct descendants of the signers. By early June, we had gotten all that done. And as we were doing it, we were passing it on to their casting, and they were saying, okay, we like this person, and they can make it, and we'd go along. And we finished in early June, and by like 10 days later, they had to shoot it. So it was a turnaround. There were folks who were like, how is this going to happen?
So,
we're so
let
glad
me get out my mental math. Mid-May, done by early June.
A little bit.
Wow.
Like 3 weeks or so, 3 or 4 weeks. So yeah, it was crazy. I've had some really crazy, interesting times, census launches and things like that, where you're just like working, digging in there. And this ranks up there.
I bet. I would put this right at the top.
And this was one that we really, the whole team was just like, and not just our team, the research team, but across the company, the marketing teams, the creative teams, everybody was so behind this and really wanted to make it happen. So many teams came together to pull this whole thing off. So it was kind of an amazing feat.
A lot of 24/7. Who you could sleep later.
Yeah. Weekends. Yep.
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, you can tell. I'm the biggest fan, if that's even possible, because I know so many people that have seen it and commented on the commercial, and it's still ongoing. That's why it was so. I was on a mission so that we could talk about it behind the scenes.
I'm so glad you invited me.
Yeah, well, of course. But let me go back to my next question, which was, what records did you use? Because I know you wanted the facts and the data.
Yeah, we started with published sources. Obviously, we needed to find some ways to take some shortcuts. Reverend Frederick Pine had compiled a book of applications of people that were applying to the descendants of signers of the Declaration of Independence. It's a lineage organization. And so that was a huge help. But of course, we wanted to base this on facts. So we took the steps and proved out every step of those lineages. We also There was a book called American Presidential Families for some of the people that would go on to be president. We can tap into that. There was another resource, and I cannot remember the name of it. I think it was online. I looked at it on microfilm in the Family History Library, and that one was a little bit more convoluted. So we didn't get to use that as much. But one of the more creative ways, there's a girl on our team that came up with a really good way. There's a Facebook group for the descendants of the signers of the Declaration of Independence.
Really?
And she is not directly descended, but she's like a collateral. And so she went on there and she posted, I forget who it was. I'm the, I think that's something cousin of so-and-so. How are you all descended?
The magic of the power of Facebook.
Because we couldn't tell people yet. Well, it was, this big top secret project that we were working on. So we couldn't tell anyone. And so it was, that was really hard part, because we wanted it to be make this big surprise splash. So that we had to be a little sneaky on that. But that was, I thought, a really clever way to get some people to come out with their relations.
I had no idea there was a group, and I know there's over 11,000 Facebook groups and pages and so forth.
There's a page for everything.
Oh, really? It's like, who'd have thought? But then that makes sense, then they can keep in touch and then add more as more of the descendants are found or are aware of the Facebook group and so forth. And then didn't you maybe also use from Sons of the American Revolution or Daughters of the American Revolution? Yeah,
we have the Sons of the American Revolution. We have the applications online at Ancestry and the DAR lineage books. There are a lot of different Revolutionary War related collections that we could tap into as well. And of course, as we're going back, as we're documenting the lineage from this person all the way back. So we used any resource we could get our hands on. There were trips to the library, and people would go in and say, okay, while you're at the Family History Library, can you look this up for me? And
so you're into, the birth records, marriage records, death records?
Anything we could get our hands on quickly. We did, and that's how we went through and compiled these trees. So really,
speaking of trees,
the whole spectrum.
We know, I'm not going to hide it. We know that y'all get a bad rap on, the ancestry trees and being bad, but you've made some really good points that I want you to share with me and others.
Well, in doing the research for this, we didn't find. At first, that was our first thought. We go find these signers in people's trees, and there was a lot of. We started going into them, and we found out that wasn't the easiest way because a lot of these trees had copied that information from one to another. So we decided that we went through some of the more traditional publications that had been a little bit better vetted. Well, actually, I can't stand. Most of the stuff I found in Pine's book was pretty spot on. So, but the trees were not as useful in that aspect. But again, there were times when I would go in there if I'm looking for a record from someone. I can't find this vital record. It's not online. I don't have time to wait for it to come in the mail. So, but if I go and look in someone's tree and they have that person in there, a lot of times they've written for it and it's on there. So, in that way, they were helpful in some cases. So it was, you just basically, you got to be resourceful and grab it wherever you can.
Well, like I learned in Thomas Jones' advanced methodology course at the Salt Lake Institute, don't have source snobbery, but be conscious, be aware that, and it could go not just for, the trees, but any other kind of record too. It can contain errors.
Yeah, it's all in our analysis. It's how do we interpret the data that we have in front of us? When was this record created? Are there motivations for someone to maybe alter it? You had to take that into consideration too. So but you went and you look and you do like you would do if you're doing any kind of research. You have to take the sources at their face value and then say, okay, what about this? Do the complete analysis in the context of everything you know about that person, and then go.
Exactly. So how many teams worked on the project, because it's, short amount of time, so how many teams of how many people and about how many total hours?
A lot of hours. There was one team that did the research, and that was our research team that I work on.
No.
And there are 7 people.
One team?
7 people that we did the research. There were a lot of people involved in other aspects, but the actual research was done by 7 of us.
Oh my gosh. I'm thinking, like hundreds of you all.
Nope.
Oh,
it's a lot of research.
You all need big, huge, gigantic gold stars.
Yeah. And to be fair too, we went, and as we were going through, we did like a 2-tiered approach. We would go in and we would identify people, and we'd maybe like, okay, this is like silver research, or bronze maybe, and said, okay, we think these people are. And then once they, the casting crew looked at it and said, okay, these are the people we're really interested in. That's where we went back and we did our really heavy duty. We need to make sure this is absolutely positively true. So
right,
as true as we could possibly prove. So,
well, then you had, the creative team that you've already mentioned. And so many other teams, there's
so many. I can't even. I know I'm missing. Marketing was heavily involved in all our aspects. Our social community, our social team. And then
the team, either from Ancestry or the Drago 5, whoever was contacting these people as well.
Yeah. They were really great to work with on this. There was a lot of collaboration across the board on this, and this is who we have, and the communication was really good. We set up a system right away where we could easily collaborate with them, and they could see in real time what we were loading on. Okay, we've identified these people. We would load them into a spreadsheet that was shared out on the cloud, and so we could go in and say, this is the date we've added this person, so they could just go and go, okay, these are all the new people, and they would go in and star or green light different people, and we had color codes that okay, these people are going to make it, this guy said no, so
okay. People after my same heart. I love color coding.
Yeah, the organization was there because we got on it so early and said, okay, we've got to do this. We got to figure out a way to make this work, a way to communicate it, a way to do the research, and because it would have been impossible to like fully vet, everyone. And the people that you see there, we don't have a descendant of every signer, because some of the signers didn't even have descendants. They don't have any living descendants. We also, just the logistics of getting, that sampling of everyone and that number of people.
Really? Oh my gosh.
So yeah, so it's but I think we did a really good job in getting you a representative view of it.
Well, to show, like you said too, to make the point that we have so much in common, and the diversity, and we all are so much alike, and that just comes through, and how everybody just, it's like they were almost all of them were related, even though they were descendants.
Yeah, and we had it was really interesting. I did two Franklin. There were like a father's son and a father's daughter. And both of them were double descended. They were descended from actually one of them was a first cousin 8 times removed from one signer, but he was also descended from a signer of the Constitution. And another one was double descended from Roger Sherman and Ben Franklin. So there was a lot of interesting little things like that we found in there. And the thing that was kind of neat is learning, how they really embraced the knowledge that, the ones that knew. There weren't many that didn't know. Most of them were very well aware of their heritage, and they knew about it. The story had been passed down. A lot of cases, the family names are still being passed down. So that was kind of interesting too. But that one of them has an inherited fire buckets from a different one. It was actually from his ancestors that were descended from Roger Sherman. And he has these antique fire buckets from the late 1800s, and he keeps them on his fireplace. And Ben Franklin was actually the founder of the first fire brigade in Philadelphia. He volunteers as a volunteer fireman in his community. And so they carry this stuff and they embrace it in their lives. And I think that's really kind of fantastic. There was another one, they inherited an iron dog. One of their ancestors' last name was Frisbee. And he was another government servant, but they actually inherited this iron dog they named Frisbee that came from that family. It's been passed down through the years in there. And then
see, it's amazing what we people. I remind my students, I remind everybody, and you just reminded me too. It's amazing how much we don't realize what we do have in our own home or what's been passed on. And look at what these. And
it's a reminder to make sure that your descendants know the stories of these things, these heirlooms that are passed down, the significance of them, so they don't. We were in an estate sale today, and I'm looking at all these beautiful antiques and photographs of people, and I'm thinking, these are all going to be gone from the family now. Yeah. So you make sure you document the significance of the things that you've gotten. That was a real lesson takeaway for me, is to make sure that even though I come from much more humble beginnings.
Yep. But
still want to make
those are important. Those are important.
Significance for my ancestors, the photograph of that famine immigrant, those type of things. I need to make sure people know who that woman is and what she went through to get here.
And why I have something, what importance is it? Well, it was passed on down to me, from my mom's mom, my grandma, and it was given to her, just the other, for my mom's, actually it was for the anniversary of her passing. I put a photograph on Facebook, and this is for my nieces and nephews to see, and for my son, of course, to him, I'm just kind of like a constant recording, but for them to see that this china hutch that their grandma, my mom, had, where did it come from? Well, it was her mom, my grandma's wedding gift that her husband had another cousin made, and the clawed feet on that china hutch, and the curved glass, all was made for her in 1895.
Wow, that's amazing.
So just even if it's that little blog or little blip on Facebook, at least they know, and little by little. And
it reminded me, I have to post my aunt just 2 weeks ago on the way back from FGS gave me my great grandmother's Polish prayer book, and it's just this crumbling little book with little cards in it. But I cried. That's a huge treasure to me. And I don't have anything else of hers. She died relatively young. And so that needs to be, this is what this is. This is Julia's.
And how you got it and how that person's related to you. And we can't get too much in that, because I'll start crying too.
I know. We need to
I know it's like, and when I was, well, we didn't have a chance to hook up because you were just leaving town or coming back into town, or our schedules when I was
coming in. I had 2 weeks of traveling.
Right.
And then in Pittsburgh.
Right. But when I stopped, got to stay at your mom's, and all the pressures, just like all of them just gave me goosebumps, and the stories and the photos. And then I remember, from many years ago when I first met her, I knew about you probably before you even knew about me, and the story that some of us have heard, where she used to pay you to rewind the microfilm, but to see the pictures.
She had a list of surnames, and we would have to go through and find our people in the Brooklyn census, and we had to cite our sources on a little index card so she could find it again. If we didn't cite our sources, we didn't get a quarter.
That's right. And you had to rewind that film, it's just like, and all those little things but to be there, it's like, oh my gosh, this is my, a museum, and but it's good to encourage people to do that. And it doesn't have to be long and extravagant. I know, we get busy doing stuff, but just a little bit, just a little bit here and a little bit there. And for National Grandparents Day, I had a photograph of my grandma and my mom, and I've got to write the story of her hairbrush and comb and mirror that I have. of hers. And yeah, I think there's maybe even some of her hair, I would like to think, in her hairbrush. But so we have to do that. Thanks for adding that. So approximately about how many hours?
I couldn't even guess. I know I was working 12-hour days, a lot of days on this, and I know my colleagues were as well. And there were some weekends spent on it. You did what you had to do to get through it, but we wanted to make sure that we were not going to get in the way of this project. That the research was going to be there, and we were going to have enough people to do a good representation.
Well, it was just like hundreds upon hundreds. It overwhelms me to think.
Yeah. Normally we do try to keep track of our hours, but in this case, it was just
go. So, what each of the descendants, the 29 that were in the commercial, now did you present them with the research and any photographs and the documents or reports or things?
Yeah, we turned everything over. We created accounts for each of them and transferred their trees over to them. They were each given a DNA test if they wanted it, and I think everybody took it. They took the chance. And so each of us got on the phone with the people we had found, and we called them up, and a group in my case, it was a group call with a couple of people. And so I went through and looked at some of the stories that we had found on some of their ancestors, and some things that didn't necessarily relate directly, but like I had found, one of them was descended somewhere in the path there was architecture firm called something in Hine. I can't remember the name now, but they actually were credited. They designed a lot of the subways in New York City, and those little white subway tiles that are so popular.
Yes.
They were credited for starting that trend. So all you HGTV fans.
Really? Oh my gosh.
That's where they started out. Somebody, I forget it was Hine, H-E-I-N, somebody in Hine. And the Hine was their ancestor. So, like little things like that. And one of them was descended from Benjamin Franklin Bache. And there was a story in there about how he actually had Ben Franklin's printing press. And he was, I don't remember, he was anti-federalist. And so he went after Adams and some of the first presidents he was putting out some pretty serious stuff saying, hey, this isn't the way I believe we were supposed to be doing this. And he actually was charged before the Alien Sedition Acts went in, he was charged before they even got through Congress. They charged him with violating it. And he was put in prison, he bailed out, and he actually died before he was sentenced. He died of yellow fever. But still, it was, these little interesting side journeys, and they knew that they were double descended, but like one of them thought he was descended from Carroll of Carrollton. I forget his first name. But anyway, but he was actually descended from he was descended from Daniel Carroll, who was a signer of the Constitution. So he was still pretty big, and it turns out he was a first cousin 8 times removed from William Carroll of Carrollton. I think his name's William. Mm-hmm. So too many facts went into my brain through this.
Oh yeah.
I'll tell you what, you learned your American history through this project, though.
Oh, definitely. And this definitely takes the cake as far as one of the best ones, if not the best ones. And
thank you. We appreciate that.
It was so many people, and and I know when the start of the 4th of July weekend, I hadn't seen it yet, and it was already being commented on and going, where, what, how, and then when I saw it, it's like, whoa. And I even interrupted what program was on so that we could be on the channel of one of the shows that it knew it was going to be on. And so, but it's just amazing. And I applaud every single person. I mean, kudos. It just,
like I said, our team and all the teams at Ancestry, we're just so proud to be a part of this project, and it really made us feel good to see it come off in such a beautiful way.
Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing what other things that Drago5, the creative agency, has in mind for Ancestry marketing.
Cool stuff in the works.
Good, good. Well, I hope that when that happens, you can come back and chat with me and give me some more behind the scenes looks.
All right, sounds good.
But thank you so much, Julie. I appreciate it. Big hugs.
Thank you, Val. It's so good to talk to you always.
Oh, thanks, and good to see you. Big hugs, and always, just love what you do. Just love what you do.
My puppies for all being quiet.
Yeah, and they were all good.
Except for
all
good.
Well, I want to thank everyone. I know we went a little bit over, but to me, it was well worth every second. And so if you would like, please put a comment below in the comments. If you have any questions or comments, drop us a quick email at info@theinDepthGenealogist.com. Feel free to take a look at the ancestry.com/declaration commercial anytime. It's there, but we're gonna hope that you come back and look and check out this video as well. So follow us on Facebook, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. It's like, which direction am I going? Follow Julie on Ancestry.com. And until next time, remember to go in depth like she did with all of your ancestors. Bye-bye.